now and press the bell icon. Never miss an update.
Hello everyone. Before going into all the details about all the judiciary exams that there is, we need to understand first what is a judiciary entrance exam. So judiciary entrance exam is conducted by every state to fill the position of civil judge class 2. It is one of the most prestigious exams in the country as it is gives you to entry in the judicial services in India, which means this is one of the very few ways you can actually enter in Indian judicial service. So obviously, it is also one of the hardest exams. It requires a very specific approach from the student as well as from the teacher. There needs to be a very analytical and very exam-focused approach to clear judiciary entrance exam. It requires a deep knowledge of the subject. This is to understand to all the students here. It requires a very deep knowledge of your subject, especially and a very hard and constant practice to practice exam. Without practice, you're not going to be able to crack this exam, and we are going to help you in practicing for especially for this purpose. We will also provide you all there is to know about the subject that you're going to study. So, what you need to become a civil judge? First of all, let's clear with the eligibility. So you need to be a graduate in a degree in law, obviously from a recognized college or a university. For some states, there is also an age limit. For example, a 30 years, a 35 years, after which you will not be able to take any civil judge exam. And for some states, there are also a requirement to know or to understand a specific language. You will have to take an exam for translation as well. So for certain states, there is special demand, special requirement to know a specific language. So obviously, for such a hard exam, there are going to be tips and tricks to clear the exam. But what are they? We are going to help you with that. But here are some of the outlines that you need to keep in your mind if you are going to attempt this exam. The first and one of the most important things that you need to understand while studying for this exam is you have to know the topics that you need to study. Plus, you need to know the topics that you need to leave, that you don't have to study. In every subject that there is for any judiciary exam, there are certain topics, there are certain chapters, there are certain sections that you don't need to study. So obviously, we don't need to fill our brain with anything that we don't require, that we don't need in our exam. We only have to study the things, the subjects, the chapters, the sections that are going to come in your exam. And that is very important to understand because there are a lot to study, there are a lot to learn, and you have to remember almost everything. So it is very important to know what you don't have to study. Obviously, you have to make a well-structured study plan. Which subject you're going to study first? Which subject is there any problem with you? With the subject that you can't understand, that you can't focus with that subject, or there are certain uh, words, there are certain provisions that you don't understand. You'll have to have a structured study plan. You'll need to decide topics that you're going to study every day, and you'll have to finish anyhow. Commitment is a very important thing to clear any exam, let alone judiciary. So obviously you'll have to have that commitment and you'll need to finish that topic that you have decided for the day, that particular day. The most important thing about judiciary is there are limited number of subjects. So obviously competition is very tough. So what counts, the need, the understanding of your subject is the most important part. You need to understand the subject so that you will be able to understand the question that is being asked. You need to remember most of the subject. So obviously you'll need to develop some few tricks, some methods that will help you remember those subjects, those sections, those chapter numbers, those case laws, what they have been given, what the decision was, why the case was actually came in front of judiciary. Everything you have to remember. So you have to get some tips, some tricks, some methods, and your teacher are going to help you with that. The most easy way to understand a subject, to know a subject, to remember a subject, to make short while studying in the class as well as while you are doing a self-study. It will go a long way with your profession because after a time you'll not need to open your books, your bare act. You can just look, have a glance over the short note, and you'll be able to remember each and everything what you have studied, what you need to remember, what you need to go through it. You'll need to devise a subject-based study plan. Every subject needs a different approach. If it is a substantive law, you'll have to have a different approach. If it is a procedural law, you need to understand how a procedure works, why it has been given in a particular provision, why it has been included in that provision. And you'll need to devise a plan to complete that subject in a limited amount of time so that you can understand and you can learn and read the subject over and over again. You cannot give a subject, for example, 2 months, 3 months. We are going to help you understand every subject easily and rapidly so that you can complete any major subject in 20, 25 days or maximum for 1 month and any minor subject within 1 week. Your time, your every day that you study, it should be divided in two parts. First part should be learning new topics, new subjects, new chapters and everything. And the other part of your day should be especially dedicated to the topics and chapters and subjects that you have already studied, that you have already done with. So you'll be able to remember. If you can't revise, there's no point studying further and you will eventually forget everything. One of the most important thing is you need to revise each and every topic, each and every subject. You should be able to connect one subject with another. Actually, this is the last part. When you complete all your subjects, all your topics in a judiciary syllabus, then you will be able to connect one subject with another. For example, you will be able to connect IPC with CRP. You will be able to connect SRA, Specific Relief Act, with contract and with civil procedure law. And it will be only possible when you give a lot of your time to practice. You do your studies, you understand every topic there is, and after that you practice so that you'll remember each and every section. And as you remember everything, you'll be able to connect one section from one subject to the other section of the other subject. Every subject requires a different approach, and the best person to teach you what that approach should be is your teacher. All of us who are going to teach you, we have special knowledge. We are always practicing with the subject. We are teaching the subject for a long time. So we know how to approach these subjects, how to teach them, how to understand them, how to learn them. After that, obviously, time management is one of the most important aspects of civil judge exam. You will only have a couple of hours to write your exam, to know every answer. So in that couple of hours, you need to tick every box there. You have to have a sharp mind. You need to deliver within that couple of hours, within 2 hours, within 3 hours. So you need to understand, you need to learn every subject so that you don't waste your time remembering it. And that comes with practice. Once you're done with a topic, once you're done with a chapter, you need to practice a lot of MCQs and a lot of long answer type questions from that topic or from that chapter. And after you're done with that subject, you need to practice all the MCQs that can come from that subject particularly. And obviously, as you have done long answer type questions with your topics, you'll have a bucket of questions and answers from that subject. With a mock test, you will be able to put yourself to the similar situation, similar conditions that you're going to face in your civil judge examination. So it is very important to take mock tests and then discuss your results with your teacher. You need to solve your previous year question papers that have been given in your state. That actually gives you an inside look on what the people who are setting your question paper think. How do they think what they want to understand about you, what they are expecting from you. And especially you need to know something, that is you need to take help from your teacher. They are there to help. You don't need to hesitate while asking any question. You don't need to think, what if this question is dumb, or what if this question is not important. We will decide, your teachers will decide if that question is important or not. And believe me, there are no dumb questions in law. Every question is important to understand your topics, your subject. And last but not the least, you need to stay relaxed. You will not be able to crack this exam if you are taking a lot of stress. Your mind needs to be free to understand, to grab all these things. So you need to be relaxed and you need to be focused. Nothing else required. You will be easily able to crack this exam. You will understand every subject, and believe me, you will feel really happy after you learn every subject. You will feel like you know a lot of things and you are ready to take this exam. Now, when I was talking about different approach for a different subject and everything, this is an overview. For example, if we are going to study Indian Penal Code, or for example, any law, any code, any act, the first question that you need to ask yourself is, what kind of law is it? Is it substantive or is it procedural? Both of these laws have very different approach. For example, procedural are comparatively easier than substantive law, because the substantive law you need to understand a topic, a subject, your rights are there, your duties are there. While in procedural law, we are actually very familiar with all the procedures there are. So you will understand, you'll learn those things very quickly. The only thing there will be remaining was to remember those. And there are tricks that we will be telling you while you take all these classes. So Indian Penal Code, obviously, it is a substantive law. It gives you rights, it gives you duty. The second thing that you need to understand is, what is the weightage of subject? Is it a major subject or is it a minor subject? How many questions from that subject, that particular subject, come in your entrance exam? If there are two or three subjects, two or three questions, then you don't need to focus too hard on those subjects, because the first thing that you need to cover is your major subject, those subjects which cover most part of your question paper. This means 15 or 14, 15 questions cover this subject cover. Okay. The next part is how to study the subject. Whether the section number, you have to remember the section number, or do you need to remember the chapters? For example, in IPC, there are one thing that is very important, that is important ingredients of any particular offense. So in each offense, in each section, there are four, five, six, two or three important ingredients in every section, and you need to remember all those ingredients. You need to know how to find out these ingredients. You need to understand how to identify these ingredients. That will help you understand the provision section very easy. The second thing that you need to do is find out the important topics. What are the important topics from that particular chapter? For example, in Indian Penal Code, general exceptions are one of the most important topics. A lot of questions come from that particular chapter. So how can you prepare for that chapter? What are the things that you need to understand about that chapter? What are the things that you need to remember? How can you club more than one section together? So it will be easy for you to remember. The next thing that you need to do is frequently asked questions. It is very important, because it helps you. What are the probability of these questions being asked again? When you look at previous year question paper, you'll find there are two, three questions in each and every subject that are being repeated every other year. So it gives you a satisfaction to know that you already know these questions. It will be easy for you to understand that those questions, and you will have a sense of preparedness. You will feel like you have prepared to answer those questions, and you're prepared to take the exam. The second thing is, and one of the most important, is amendments. Law and amendments go hand in hand. In every subject, you need to make a list of amendments and what are its requirements. how that amendment has affected the goal, how that amendment has affected all the proceedings and the Indian situation. What are the developments with the law? How the law has developed, especially in judicial view. For example, Section 377 was partially held unconstitutional in a particular case. So what case that is? Why that was held unconstitutional? What was the reason behind why it was held unconstitutional? How did it develop? How did it go through? How many cases are there? We need to know and learn and remember everything. And last but not least, all the important cases, their judgment and its nature, what it has come to, what it brings to the table. And this is how you study any particular subject. The next important part is how can you prepare? Obviously, these notes will eventually help you while you revise for any subject, while you study it again, or just before the exam, 2, 3 days before the exam. This will help you tremendously. The first thing you need to do is put the name of the subject in bold capital letters. And the next thing is you need to write the introduction. Most of the students commits a minor mistake that they skip the introduction part, and it comes in exam. Number of questions has been asked in previous years from the introduction of the chapter. The next thing you need to do is put the chapter number. There are certain subjects, there are certain acts which gives a lot of weightage to chapter numbers and section numbers. Directly, a section number can be asked from you, and you need to remember that chapter number and section number from which section this provision is taken from, where it is given that this particular aspect, this particular provision comes under which section. You need to remember everything. What are the importance of the section? If a section is important, if the ingredient that has been given under that, is it important? Then the next thing you need to do is write the provisions of that section in an easy manner. So the next time you study, in short notes, in point wise, you will see the words that you already know, and you will be able to understand those sections very easily. You need to write important elements of that section. If there is given a certain number of people are required, you need to write that thing. That, for example, in decorative, you need at least 5 people. So it should be in there, your note, in there, in your note, that 5 people are minimum 5 people are required for the offense of decorative. The moment you glance at that particular point, you'll know that decorative needs at least 5 people. The next thing that you need to do, write any one example. After you're done writing the provision in easy language, in the language you understand, write one example. So in case, if you don't understand the provision, you will be able to understand that provision with the help of the example that you have taken. If you find the example that has been given in your whereas or that has been given by your teacher, easy, you can write that example. Or if they're not easy for you, you can ask your teacher for an easy example that you understand. If you try to write any example that you will be comfortable with, write that example with your name. Then after that, find out if any important amendment has been done in that section. If there is, write that particular point, write the amendment, the year that amendment was made, amendment came, and what changes was done in that particular province. Then after that, if any important case is there is related to that particular section, in short notes, you will need to write its fact in short and decision, what the decision was given by the court. And now comes the most important part. What type of question can come from that particular section? If it is mostly important for MCQ, you need to frame that question accordingly and answer at least 2 or 3 or 4 types of that pattern, and you need to answer each and every question. For example, you can ask this provision is given under which section, and you should remember the section number. What are the important elements of this offense? You should be able to answer that particular multiple choice question. And if it is a long answer type question, you need to know what will be there in that long answer. What are the things that you need to write in that long answer? And your teacher will be tremendously helpful when you're writing those long answer type questions. So all in all, this will provide you an insight how to study for civil service exam, how to prepare for civil service. And if you follow all the important topics that we have covered in last few minutes, you will be able to clear the civil service exam. It will be easy for you to prepare for exam and to clear this exam. And you will understand the subject and you will be able to understand the question. And believe me, that is the most important part. If you understand the question, you're halfway there, because the first step in solving any problem is to understand the problem. If you understand the question, you're already halfway there. You know the answer. You just have to find it in your brain. You just need to remember it and you will be answered.